All right, here we are. Friday stand up. Quentin, you are the first in my boxes.
All right, so trying to take this week to just do some bug triage, picking off some easy ones that don't need a lot of testing, some high priority ones, and taking a break from working on the Tyler stuff. I know Bryce is still in it, but once we hit our deadline and it sailed past us, I don't know, the Douglas Adams quote. I love the whooshing sign deadlines make as they whiz by. It was good to get just check in and make sure we're not falling behind on maintaining other stuff. So actually, one thing I haven't tracked down yet is in class last week, I was able to trigger an error with the Weaver that I haven't been able to reproduce yet. And of course, I was using a school computer. I didn't save the file because the class was ending and I was rushing off. So I don't know exactly if I'll be able to, but my suspicion was it was something to do with one of the new fields we were added that wasn't escaped. What I can remember is it was in the review screen. I think the YAML was broken there in the review screen. So I'm going to try to do a couple things. One is try to put in another check for errors in YAML, which we already had as an open issue. And then I'm also going to just look again closely at that code, I suppose, and just think of anything that might break. And I'll make an issue for this instead of just saying it in our meeting.
And Matt is going to probably go put something through the Weaver this week. So maybe he'll get well, hopefully he won't get an error, but
my students will be hopefully too in my class.
Yeah.
I told them actually they have to turn in an outline next week. So hopefully they're not using the Weaver yet, really, but they might be, I guess. We'll see.
All right. Yeah. Cool. Anything else?
I can't think of anything else right now. I think that's it.
All right. Michelle.
I started working on an issue. Well, finished working on it, though I don't know if I made the PR, so I should check on that. Really minor variable name change. Also, Rocco thinks there was one PDF comparator that we found last week that appeared as if it needed something beyond Node.js, so it needs to download something onto the machine or image. We said let's pursue it a little more and see if it's actually necessary, because we couldn't see why that dependency would be necessary. So it does not. And so it does fields, it does a diff. We're not sure it can do an image diff, but it can at least do a JSON diff. And so we have a good lead for some kind of gauge on whether or not a PDF did come out the right way at the other end of the test. And so we have to think about the interface for that, and we have to do some more testing, but very promising. So
very cool.
Someday Rocco is gonna hop on here and he'll get some real life credit.
Some props,
I don't know, but so very cool.
Sounds good.
It. Yes. Right. Okay. I think that's it for me.
Bryce.
Yeah. Like Quinn said, still going on the Tyler stuff. Making progress on the callback stuff. Still waiting to hear back on Tyler. I need to poke him the tickets that I have open with them, and just to see. And I'm having issues trying to even make subsequent filing that I can file into, because I tried to make one on Wednesday, and then it's been sitting in the court processing status for 2 days now, and I don't understand how they're how it goes from court, or where it's sitting in court processing. I didn't have the implication that this, since this is a test server or a stage server, that there's someone on the other end actually doing things, but maybe there is. I'm not sure.
Do we maybe have the ability to go in and?
Well, I had the ability to go in and accept it, But after accepting it, it sits in this processing status, which I've seen happen before, but like other ones eventually end up accepting or in the accepted status or whatever. But this one isn't for some reason, and I have no idea why. So we'll see. And oh, and I had sort of yesterday I had a little bit of time that I had to do things where I triaged a bit of like prod issues that were on the DocAssembly server, rediscovered that like email thread there where apps.suffic will email the mass access thing with things that go wrong. And I was just going through, and there was a like one example of I think stuff that was going on wrong on our side, and the other ones were just issues in DocAssembly itself that were pretty easy to fix. I guess it's just things never get executed, then yeah, you can't tell that, hey, this isn't a function. So yeah, that was just I made that figure out this morning. That's really it. Don't have a ton of other updates.
Cool. Tying up on that, or dovetailing with that, I connected with the Louisiana folks this morning. I think Quentin Bryce, you should have been CC'd on that, suggesting that we find a time for them to talk to you, Bryce, about installing the e-filing bit. Did we decide that should be on the same server as the DocAssembly? I think that's what we decided.
I mean, yeah, like if they're hosting it, it should be on the same one.
Yeah.
I think for a while, I think I wasn't sure if they were hosting it or we were going to host it. But
And
yeah, no.
if you were emailing them, Dave, I think we were saying we were going to try to come up with a Docker compose or some other kind of automated process for them to combine both of them. We have a script already, right? We did a Docker compose to split them both up. But we wanted to add in the ability to use it to get updates to the OS.
All right. I left it very broad and just asked it for times of day or times of the week. That would be good. Hopefully they'll follow back. They might not today because it's Friday. They might follow back on Monday. And then we'll just find a time to sit down with them and maybe help them. Same plan as last time. I think if they want it, we can go over their shoulder. If not, we can give them something. And then once we get the Jeffnet version of the e-filing over there with them, and it sounds like this thing that'll update stuff for them, which will make them happy on their other front. Then it's just about figuring out how when we're ready to actually say move the things from our test to your production. We'll probably do a little light kick the tires and yeah.
I think
sort of anticlimactic.
I'm wondering now, since I think because there is a split in like the e-file stuff of that was like, here's the Jeffnet only stuff and here's the version that we are using to like go through certification and stuff. And the one that we're using to go for certification will still be able to is still able to do Jeffnet stuff, but there are just a decent amount of like internal refactors that we had to do once we realized that like, oh yeah, everyone's going to have to log in with their Tyler stuff individually, et cetera, et cetera. But I think I had done that and I thought it was all going to be fine and well, because we would be hosting that version and then we could go through and do all the testing. And when we're ready, we can just update it. And from everyone else's perspective, it
for
would be
the
seamless.
Tyler stuff.
But,
so the Louisiana folks will never use the Tyler stuff.
No, that's what I'm saying. They won't use the Tyler stuff, but the proxy itself, like there were components that are used in both that I like had to refactor.
Okay.
And it's still like just the same, like any updates that we make to one side will be seen by the other if it's not like a Tyler specific thing. But it was mostly just the fact that like if we do like if they like come in to say like, hey, or if Jeffnet eventually wants to like add other features of like, hey, we might want to do this and do these other things, it will be a whole like, here's a brand new version. It's set up in this, not like too different of a way, but it's set up in a slightly different way. And it's mostly if we don't have like I think I had done this split thinking that we would have like be essentially the only people running the server live at the process and we'd be able to handle it. But it seems more more concerning to try and have like two very, very different versions. And I don't know if it makes sense to like do all these same tests that I've done with the existing Jeffnet version and just do another split that will be much different. There aren't going to be like any more like huge refactors to the proxy server at this point, really.
Whatever you think is best given the setup, which would be them hosting the Jeffnet thing without the need to integrate the Tyler thing.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe a strategy could be to defer a merge, but to plan it and plan in some time. Sorry, too loud. It's a little loud, but a little bit better. Just like if we just put that on our calendar for when we want to merge the two branches.
Less that
we'll
they're
just
a
have to do
merge
some
because I don't
backporting
think there's
fixing, right?
I don't think there's less of a merge because there's nothing we'd have to like there might be like one or two small fix commits, but I'm pretty sure I also cherry picked them to master because but essentially it's just like much earlier in the history I like put a tag on it and made a small branch just so it's easier because these branches are easier to use in DocAssembly than tags. But it's essentially just acting as a tag of much earlier in the history, and it's mostly it's not a huge thing, but I think the DocAssembly configs and it's mostly like in like the DocAssembly. Yeah, it's mostly like the DocAssembly configs will be different, and there's less of them required, I think, but they're like slightly different names. And how that is used is going to be a little bit different. And it shouldn't have any effect on like interviews or anything, but it's just there'll be updates in two places that are, I don't know.
Well, for long-term maintenance, we're going to probably want to let people have both servers running at once, right? And we're going to want to have all the code in one version. But that just feels like not a good thing to spend time on now. Like I just think we should choose a date like 3 months in the future and say we're going to merge them so that there's just one code base as of this date. And then schedule out some time to test it. And if the Jeffnet stuff's pretty stable, there's a really small API and there's not a lot happening there, then, and also they're not going to be installing other packages than the ones we have. We just should make it easy to deploy and test it and say, okay, we want you to migrate to this new version with the updates. And then it'll just be easier for us to maintain it long-term. Does that?
Well, yeah, that makes sense. But I'm just wondering if it's mostly just a matter of, okay, I can make sure I can run through Jeffnet filing with the new version, like only spinning up Jeffnet stuff without any of the weird Tyler things. Then like if I can run through those two interviews, we don't have to worry about like, oh, here's this huge migration that you're going to have to change some configs in your DocAssembly and like some other like slightly different things.
Okay.
Like I could.
You're saying you want to backport some stuff now, basically?
Not
or the stuff that's there now.
Just get them using the master branch now. And the master branch, both the master branch and the old stuff are like perfectly usable without Tyler's stuff. But it's just if we can get them on the master branch, then it's really just I think just like how the server key that it is used and yeah, I think it's just like the server key that's used is like a different it's different config and it's like under a different header that you send to the server proxy server every time you like ask
just so I understand, you had made a branch back before while you were still doing a bunch of stuff so that we knew that it was stable and good. But yes, you've done a bunch of refactoring and stuff now, and you think that Jeffnet is still stable and good, and we should just use the more recent version because because of all that refactoring, etc. It's now a little easier to use, and then of course, well, in the future, we won't have to go way back to this old.
Yeah.
That sounds reasonable.
It does to me too. I guess I would just think like, what tests can we do to run it and make sure that it's still the best first branch to use, and then decide like how much time it makes sense to spend on switching to the master if the old one already works.
Yeah, if it's quick, we could test it in our testing environment with Jefferson Parish. They're very, they're very very easy to work with. So and
That's-
we should
okay.
do that before we install anything over on the Supreme Courts. So what might be
Yeah,
nice is, since we hadn't actually done an explicit test with Jefferson Parish about the divorce, you could reach out to David and you could say, hey, because I think before all you gave David was the name change. And you could say, hey, there's a second form that they wanted. Here's the divorce. And we did a little, tweaking under the hood. Can we, push this through a test too? And then they get the new thing and we get a test, all for the price of one.
Cool. Okay.
And I would do that sooner rather than later,
Yeah,
because
I
it
can
would be
try
nice to
do
have
that.
that done before we do stuff with the
Yes,
Supreme Court.
that's fair.
All right, cool. And I'm actually rather, well, Jefferson Parish has always been a pleasure to work with, and it seems like the court is ready to move forward. So we just need to, there's really not that much more to do with IT. I have a feeling we might actually get to the situation where we get IT already, and then we're waiting on the final go ahead on the forms or the way they want them, which would be a perfectly fine place to be in. But it's a race. Who's going to get first? Will they approve the forms, or will IT get the server spun up? It's a race. All right.
We should take bets. Or maybe that would be too far. Odds. I want the odds.
Yeah, I know. That's, you could do like internal prediction markets things to, help you plan.
There you go.
Of course, then you got to worry about people playing the markets. Okay, or manipulating the markets.
Start our own economy.
So
Yeah.
you need a second set of people who don't have control over that project with a prediction market on the other
I think
project.
this is now a casual Friday discussion.
Maybe. I don't know. All right. So that's good there. I've just been doing paperwork and cleanup on stuff, like I'm doing fun financial reporting stuff and workday things to close up all the loose strings with the old grants, because we're just waiting for all the invoices to come in, that invoice from the previous month. And so I was just putting some of that stuff together. And yeah, so that's me. I don't have much from an assembly line standpoint. All right then. Anything else anyone wants to bring up or talk about for stand up?